Hey everybody, how's it going out there? If any of you know me, you know that sometimes it takes me a while to get going. Sometimes I miss a few weeks. Sometimes I take my time with things, and it sometimes takes me a while to get things together and get a kick in the teeth. Especially, and it's kind of ironic because I do these things impromptu. I do these things in front of a camera, simplest kind of vlog, but it still takes energy. It still takes some pizzazz, and sometimes you just ain't feeling it. But as I mentioned during my last stream, recent events have kind of given me sort of a kick in the pants a little bit. Because, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of our ever changing world and our social media and contacts of person A and person B and who's cheating who and who's being true and who don't even care anymore, who cares anymore, right? Like, what purpose is it to document things and affairs in the furry fandom when social media and people can communicate in a relatively quick manner? Who needs old-fashioned news? Who needs those old-fashioned rags and putting things to paper like that when life is about getting out there and doing things, irregardless of the risks involved, irregardless of what some old pretentious kangaroo says on some web page? But the reality is that news eventually becomes history, and that's always been something that I have always found as a element or a statement to give what I do purpose, even if it feels like nobody pays attention. And because it may not go spoken, but I believe that keeping a good record and keeping a good history is appreciated. And in this world where we seem to have infinite data and infinite connectivity with each other, we sometimes take the how fragile these things are for granted until a situation comes along that reminds you of just how fragile our so-called infinite ability to share information is. And that's sort of the article that I had written on Flera.com, which I think is a very important one. A link in the description below for this article. It basically goes over this issue that has occurred in this past month about announcements that have been made by Twitter and Google. It kind of started with Twitter. Twitter basically had Elon Musk, its new Grand Vizier leader, Elon Musk, come down from on high upon the tweets and say, I think we're looking to deactivate certain accounts if they're not used after a certain period of time. Now, I've heard the number 30 days be run around, which is a very short period of time. Apparently, that's somewhere in the TOS, or somebody had linked to it in the TOS, but somebody could have screenshot that. I haven't read through it, but the reality is that what he's saying is the intention is that an account will be archived and removed from the system. But there are news reports that people who have been inactive for a long time have already had their accounts suspended. And not only were they suspended so that no one could access any of the deceased's tweets, but they were done so in such a callous manner that they appeared as if they had violated the rules within their lifetime instead of having the rules changed posthumously on them and basically cause their account to be terminated. The link to that article that describes that situation is actually linked to in my article about that situation. And so you can find a link to that particular situation there. It is a story about a non-furry whose account was suspended due to inactivity. But the reality is that the suspension page doesn't even say suspended due to inactivity. It says suspended due to violating the TOS. So when you interpret rules, as it were, I guess that means that dying is against the rules in Twitter. And if you die, eventually you can't access your account, and eventually that means that your account will be nullified, to turn a phrase from a old CGI show from my childhood days. Your account will be nullified by Twitter, and therefore that is something that can happen now. A lot of people in the press and journalists who, for better or worse, sometimes, pick at certain things, noted that this sort of threat that has sort of been enacted upon by Twitter sort of came after NPR indicated that they would no longer be using Twitter due to the fact that they were highlighted as state-affiliated media on Twitter. And there's a whole article about that. But that kind of gets into a tangent that's a little non-furry related. But basically, a lot of journalists who are covering this whole account abandonment rule made the assumption that it was tied to that, and that basically Elon Musk is looking to eliminate NPR's account due to them basically saying we are not going to play in your ball field anymore. And basically, Elon Musk is using leverage, and what they're basically insinuating here is that Elon Musk is using his leverage over the website to say, well, if you won't play ball in my ball yard, I'm going to basically delete everything on your account and suspend it for not being active. So, but this new rule caused a lot of issues and a lot of people to get caught in the crossfire. Now, it could be that they are looking to save room and they don't see themselves as an archival thing, but mostly as a in the here and now social media platform. And that could be the case. But the issue is that this has caused concern amongst furries and internet archivists about important historical items being lost to time and the cruelty of these rules, right? The elimination of history, basically. It has been noted that Rapid T. Rabbit and Sean Howell, two late furries who had passed on, have had this situation occur to them where their accounts are already gone. A lot of furries have noted that they wish to back up things. So the good news is that in the name of Mr. Rogers, you always try to look for the helpers and help with a call to action. Like if somebody's, because this is a very intense situation, so a lot of furries are like, maybe we should archive some of the things that happened in Twitter and archive some of the accounts that happened in Twitter. So there is a organization and a person in an organization who has taken it upon themselves. The organization is called Fang, Feather, and Fin. It was like a sort of mini writers group. I haven't heard of them in a few years, but I was aware of their thing. I didn't even know they were still a thing. But Fang, Feather, and Fin is a small sort of furry writers group, but also sort of archivists and nonfiction writers. Haven't seen their stuff lately. If they have a website, I would love to take a look at it and do more with it. Because if they're nonfiction, man, I would love to support their work. But basically, they're pushing to sort of ask for archives, and they have a form that you can fill out that's in the link. It's in a link on the article where you can submit a account of a late furry or a furry that has passed on, and to help these folks archive the information on that account before the sands of time and Elon Musk consume the account, basically. And that being said, it's like, and you think the story's done here, but the reality is that after Elon Musk made that announcement, about a week later, right when I was kind of putting this together and talking about it a little bit, Google made an announcement. So I had to hold my horses here. And Google also made an announcement under which they claimed that they would also be closing inactive accounts. And so that made everything even worse because, and when Google originally announced this, they said, oh yeah, YouTube was included in that, like Google Docs, YouTube, everything else. And so, obviously a lot of people took a little eyebrow raising at YouTube, and they're like, Really? So like the first YouTube video, like the Hello World video on YouTube, which was I think called like A Day at the Zoo or something like that, that was posted by the founder of YouTube before, I think it was even before it was called YouTube. I think that wasn't the original name, but basically before Google had even bought it out, before YouTube had become very, very successful, the original founder had posted a video of them visiting a zoo, and that's sort of a historical artifact. And people were concerned that Google would go and pursue that. Apparently, Google said that YouTube videos posted on channels probably wouldn't be impacted by this, though probably using the account in order to like post new videos or edit the thing probably would be impacted. Obviously, the person isn't alive if it's an individual's channel. If it's a corporate channel, then it could obviously still be active even beyond the person's passing. So basically, but Google is not being as Google has been open about what the timeline is. It's 2 years. Basically, if your account has not been activated or entered or used in 2 years, then they would start to remove things, and they would send you a bunch of emails saying we're about to shut down your account. But if you have a Google account, you probably have a Gmail, so I guess hopefully they have a side email for you to access. I think this at the end of the day, I'm glad that furries are taking a look at and thinking about end of year planning and archiving things on the internet, because the internet, nothing is forever, and even things on the internet, as much as whatever happens on the internet stays on the internet, there is the passage of time, and the passage of time can erode people's memories and can erode things away, especially now that corporations have decided that in order to save storage space and do that, they're trying to move into these avenues of basically data liquidation. So this has kind of put a spark in a lot of furry archivists, and it's put a spark in me, because if the internet is going to be eliminating things, and this is something I've noticed a pattern, and even in some of our older Flavor articles, is that there are links in the Flavor article that talk about a general situation, and all of a sudden, poof, it's all gone, right? If you click on the link, it's like this link no longer works, right? 10 years later. Like if you're saying, oh, here's a thing to buy this book, well, that link doesn't work anymore 10 years later. So there's probably a bunch of older articles on Flavor that the links no longer work. So and the interesting thing is that as I saw Elon Musk take over Twitter, I started to change the way that I denote things in articles at this point. If I'm utilizing, and it's for multiple reasons, but one of the things I changed in how I wrote things is that you'll notice that basically when I was talking about the fangs and fonts situation here, I actually they had a tweet in which they were asking for people to submit a form in. What I did, instead of using the embed feature on Twitter, I actually just copied and pasted the text and put it into a block quote, and then allowed a link to the tweet to be utilized. And if there was a link in the tweet that needed to be utilized that was in the tweet, I basically just reformatted it to be more pretty with that. I used a href tag instead of using just leaving the link in the bottom. So basically, I've changed the way that I archive things in a news article when it comes to using social media. Instead of just embedding the social media site onto Flare's site, I take a copy of those things and paste it on there, right? And then post a link to the tweet in question. If I really, most of the times when I'm making quote tweets, it's usually not of negative things. So like having a screenshot or things like that isn't really something that needs to really happen. Usually it's of people who are trying to help or are making official press statements. So, or press releases. So it's not really something where It's not like a thing that it could be deleted and then somebody could get angry. It's like, because it's like, well, you copied my tweet and put information on there. Obviously, they would have to talk to the editor-in-chief about that, Green Reaper, in order to deal with that. But I haven't had that problem yet. It's something new that I'm doing, but because I think it's important. Because it's for two reasons. Number one, because Elon Musk took over Twitter, and I was worried, Twitter could go down any moment. Because, people are assuming that. I didn't think it was going to completely fail, but it's like, just in case, start to, write things out instead of just embedding tweets, right? Because if you embed tweets and then Twitter goes down, that information is gone, right? This was before this was implemented, but this being implemented enforces it to the nth degree that I made the right decision in that change. Because now, if Twitter does, if the account that's tied to that eventually gets erased, the words that were placed there will still be retained on Flara. And I do have faith that the leader of Flara, despite any qualms I may have about his ideals or things like that, I do believe that he does feel that Flara is sort of for archival purposes or for news purposes, and news eventually becomes history, as I said. So I think it's an important thing, and I think this brings attention to that, the importance of maintaining a good record and keeping that. And so because of this, I will probably be doing more videos in the future, probably be doing more written articles in the future, because sometimes it requires the institutions that you once saw as infallible or had some idea that it's, you overestimated their interest in being archival resources. All of a sudden your relationship with those organizations and institutions change, and you realize that they're more in it for the low-hanging fruit, the day-to-day interaction and emotion and trials, rather than the overarching story and the overarching sense of community. And because you are confronted with that, you end up going, well, what can I do to improve the situation, rather than waiting for the moon to fall, as it were, upon Termina. So that's all I have to say about this particular thing. One thing I did note, and this is going to be kind of a transition into the next video topic, because you probably know what it is, and you probably thought that this video was going to be it, but I think that this happened first, and I think it's important. So, and the other story is still sort of evolving, and it does go into furry social media, particularly for affinity. But the funny thing and the ironic thing that I have to kind of laugh about is the final section on this Flara article that I wrote. I utilized Fur Affinity as an example of a better way to deal with death and archiving things, and how to deal with death in social media. Instead of making dying against the rules, as Twitter is sort of doing and Google in essence is sort of doing, you could go about doing things such as what Fur Affinity has done. Obviously, this was implemented by Fur Affinity in a previous administration, and I don't know who did it, but this person deserves a good thing. But basically, you have, oops, oh shoot. Well, that can't be used. Edit that out. I forgot Lemonade Coyote had spicy stuff on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit that out. So just know that I clicked on the link to Lemonade Coyote site, and I forgot that he had adult works on this front page. So click that link with caution if you are in not safe for work mode. And I'm editing that out of the video for obvious reasons. But there is a link to Lemonade Coyote's page And Lemonade Coyote was a fursuiter who worked as an EMT who had died in 2014, and I wrote an article about that one. It's a very tragic situation, but Fur Affinity implemented in essence, what is an infinity sign as a symbol status for people who had passed on, and basically, as a matter of safety, what you could do is as soon as you know that a person has passed on and died. What you could do is, close their account, lock out any ability to access that account or anything like that, and put like that sort of symbol that the person has passed on, so that people, approaching the site know that the user is no longer amongst the living, right? And that would be especially a great thing to do for like people who are subscribing to Twitter Blue, just throwing it out there, give some sort of benefit for it, If somebody has a Twitter Blue account, like allow them to maybe have a beneficiary, right? Go like, hey, like, what's an email address or what's a thing of a person that you would want to us to be able to send, condolences and like archival stuff to their machine for your things. Like, give us a list of emails of people that you would want to have, your data after you pass on, and before we shut down your account, right? And maybe give them even a bonus of having their account allowed to be up further than people who didn't pay for Twitter Blue, for like a year or something instead of 30 days. Do some business, man. You know what I mean? Just do some business. Think outside the box a little bit. Innovate. The thing you're supposed to be going for. Do some good stuff. Give a benefit that people can do. And a social media beneficiary, I think, is an awesome idea, right? Like, give the opportunity to, like, hey, like as a YouTuber, right? Like, hey, maybe it's like, hey, as a function of YouTube Premium, if you buy into YouTube Premium and you're a content creator, like, list the beneficiary, and then basically, after you have passed on and your account is like over a year old, right, has not been activated in a year as a content creator, like, we can send an email out. We can send an email to you, like at month 9, month 10, month 11. And say, hey, like, we're seeing that you're inactive for almost a year now. At the end of the first year, we're going to email those beneficiaries that you listed and allow them to archive your videos, and basically we'll send an email for them to confirm that you're passed on and stuff like that. Think of new innovative ways. We have to treat death as if it is something in life, because it is. We can't just keep pushing it under the rug and believing that putting ourselves on the internet is going to make us immortal, because it's not. I'm going to die someday. All right? It happens to everyone. That's why, I'm a homeowner, right? But a lot of people say, oh my gosh, you're a homeowner. You have like the American dream. It's like rent. The only difference between renting and owning a home is like, I'm paying rent just as much as anyone else is, right? I'm paying. The difference is who I'm paying, right? That's the only difference. Is it a landlord, or is it yourself and your insurance company and the government, right? Like, depending on where you live for the government, obviously with property taxes, it's a variant thing. But I have property taxes, so I'm paying the government, my insurance, and quote unquote myself, right? So who are you paying is the only difference between being a homeowner and that. And obviously I'm responsible for things go bad. That's another thing, right? So, but that's a whole other topic, right? It's like the concept is that I am leasing this because I will not live forever. He was like, I own this. It's like, well, when I die, I own nothing. I will own nothing when I die. Nobody. That's the whole idea, and that's the whole concept that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about, which is why archival and news is important, even in a day and age where people seem to be chasing, the next big thing, or the next whim, or the next fear, or the next day-to-day issue. Let's work together to make sure that, the memories of our loved ones and the people we care for in our communities are not lost. And we shall never be lost. So, thank you very much for watching. I can repeat that kind of stuff until I'm dead, I suppose. But I have other things to do, and you have other things to do, so kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. What do you think about this whole situation? What is your sort of end-of-life planning on the internet? What are your plans as far as those kind of things? If you feel comfortable sharing it. It's a very uncomfortable topic. No one likes talking about it. Forget about it. We all live forever. Ever and ever. Forever and ever. Have a good one, guys.